Good morning, everyone that are logging in. We're going to wait for just another minute longer. We've got already, gosh, a huge number of folks logging in, which is really quite exciting for the first time we've ever tried to do something like this of this nature. And we've got, hey, Doug, thank you so much. Everything is good. So thanks for your note. And for those of you who are praying, folks out there, pray for this event right now. We've got some amazing talent, and I'm praying that technology will not get in the way, and we can just be able to share with each other just some things that, for the week. And so while others are logging in, and thank you all for being here on time. Tomorrow, you're going to be excited about tomorrow's lineup. We've got what I'm calling our Tech Titans, 4 terrific presenters, Daniel and Jorge and Sanjeev. So we have from just various disciplines, but all in that technology space on how can we use tech in our business to survive COVID-19. How do we use that to reach out to our families? How do we use it to reach out to our clients and our customers? How do we use it to reach out to our teams? Wednesday, I'm very excited. We've got 3 elected officials that'll be with us, both from the national, state, and county. Kristen Gaspar, one of our county supervisors. We've got Brian Jones, state senator for here in California, and we have Scott Peters, who is one of our representatives in Congress. Thursday will be what I'm called Just Show Me the Money Day. We're going to be having some lender experts on how to tap into the various programs, both federal, state, and local. But also, what happens if the money doesn't come in soon enough? Just fortunately, on February 19th, there was some new regulations signed, amending Chapter 11, that's the section dealing with business reorganization. So for those companies, those businesses that don't get money in time, don't fear. There's actually been some new changes that will allow for companies to go into temporary bankruptcy, but to work their way out. So that's great timing. And then Friday will be a wrap up, and that is when do we get back to normal? Dorothy, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. And I don't think Toto is either. So what does the new normal look like, and when do we get back to normal? So without any further ado, it is 4 minutes after. I do want to welcome everybody who has joined us today and will be joining us as we go forward. I'm RJ Kelly. I'm founder and chief visionary officer of Wealth Legacy Group and the Wealth Legacy family of companies here in San Diego, California. And we're just like you, been at home working, trying to figure out how do we make sense of all this. And one of the things that has been of concern is how do we aggregate the resources that are out there, especially for business owners. Business owners are the bread and butter for Wealth Legacy Group. And it's been so frustrating to not be able, for a guy like me who is an answer junkie, I love to be able to give answers, and I have been frustrated at not having clear, definitive answers in a variety of ways. And so as much as anything, it was for me a desire to be able to resource these things for our friends, our clients. So that's what today is about. If you find this helpful, won't you please invite someone else to listen in? Please invite them. This is a free webinar series. We'll be doing this from 9 to 10 or about 10:15 every morning. We are recording these sessions. So if you desire to have all these sessions, and at the end, by the way, at the end of today, our goal is to have our sessions all bundled up, loaded up onto YouTube. We'll give you that link so that you can go and re-listen to any points that you might have missed, see some of the slides, and won't you please send that out to some folks that are going to need to hear it and need to see it. At the same time, please invite them to join us for the rest of the series. All we ask is that you give us a name, a phone number, email address, and also make a donation to the San Diego Food Bank if you want to have the whole series. We're going to be providing the entire series free of charge, and all we need, again, is just your name, email address, a phone number, and the business name, and please make a donation to the San Diego Food Bank. You'll have a link in today's email that we send out. We are also going to be sending out a survey at the end of the week with another link to the food bank. It's our goal this week is to create over 10,000 meals. 1 in 5 San Diegans here are now food insecure, as it's being politely called. They don't know where the next meal is coming from, is the reality. And in fact, this is affecting many, many children because unfortunately, not just in San Diego, but across our country, schools are the primary source of meals for many of our children. And so when they are not in school, guess what? They're not getting a wholesome meal. And that's what the San Diego Food Bank does. It's an extraordinary outreach into our community. And as I say, 1 out of 5 are right now food insecure. So every $100 that you send in to the food bank will help them provide 300 meals. And we will also be doing an event later this year at the food bank. If you've not done a tour there, it is extraordinary. Last of all, before we get started, I do want to thank our primary sponsors for this, Vistage. And there are a number of different groups out there that are peer-to-peer business networking groups. I just happen to be a raving fan and have been for years and years of Vistage. They're here in San Diego, and good friend Dale Robinette. You'll be hearing more about him. But anyway, thanks to Vistage. Thanks to our friends from Home Street Bank who will be with us on Thursday's event. They are SBA experts. And plus there'll be some other things you'll want to hear about that will be coming. Last, we also have Pacific Life Insurance Company, extraordinary company, grateful for them. And so thank you for all participating and being with us. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my friend, our business coach. We've been together for now, I think, coming on 6 years, Max, isn't it?
Yes.
It's I don't think there's any coincidence that, in fact, at Wealth Legacy Group, that our practice has had record years. But this is our 6th record year in a row, and we've been working with Max during that time. Max is out of the lovely city of Asheville, North Carolina. We have several from the South today. Dr. Andy Ward, who's going to be with us, is from Atlanta. And then Rob Monroe, our retired SEAL team captain, who's second to that here in San Diego. But Max, thanks for joining us from lovely Asheville. You've got a storied background. You have a wonderful book as well that you're going to be alluding to where some of this material is coming from. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you, Max.
Great. Thank you, RJ. You can hear me okay?
I hear you fine.
Beautiful. Good morning, everybody. Thanks, RJ, for that wonderful introduction. And my name is Max Bolka, and I know this is a crisis management webinar series, but rule number 1, as you'll hear from speakers today, is to stay calm. So today, I'm going to teach each and every one of you how to fly. We're going to talk about how to recession-proof your mind by adhering to some very fundamental principles of success and exactly what kind of mindset you need to grow your business more than you ever thought possible, even in a recession. And all in 15 minutes. How's that? So you should have some fill-in-the-blank outlines in front of you that you can take notes with. And very briefly, while you're getting that out, I'll give you just 1 minute on my background. I'm a 30-year veteran of the financial services industry. I built a nationwide planning and investment clientele. And for over 25 years, I've been a business consultant to other financial advisors and CPAs, estate planning attorneys around the country, helping them build their business. And I also work directly with RJ in helping to bring comprehensive legacy planning to high net worth families, master planning for business owners. And that's where we help business owners grow their business and then sell it or transfer it for up to 99% tax-free from the capital gains. And then if they want, they can invest their money and pay a management fee only when the account goes up. So that's what we do for business owners. So that's a little bit about my background professionally. Personally, as RJ mentioned, I'm in a book called Success is a State of Mind. I'm a huge believer in personal development as a basis for professional success. So I'm in a book called Success is a State of Mind. I'm currently writing another one called What Else? Take It to the Max. And I'm also in a movie with some other people who are much more famous than I am. So that's a 1-minute background on myself. Let's talk about you. So I developed this material in 2008, right before the last recession. So like many of you, I've been there before, and the bad news is we're here again. But I would like to invite you to consider that 90% of your success depends upon what happens right here between your ears. So the question is, how much do you want to grow your business? And how fast would you like to grow it, even in a recession? Because these, what I'm going to share with you are universal principles, which means they work in both good times and bad. They worked in 2009, they'll work again in 2020. And what I'm going to share is not some kind of magical panacea. It does require some introspection, some creativity, and above all right now, courage. And that's not necessarily easy, but let's go ahead and get started at the beginning and see how far we can get here. So what's your definition of success? I threw up 6 points there: enough money to be comfortable, meaningful work, good health, relationships, hobbies, make a significant difference in the lives of others. Now, nothing has changed on that list except travel. It's the only hobby you can't do. If you have other hobbies, it's fine. My point is this: we have good news. You get to decide what success means to you, not just in business and money, but in all areas of life. What I call the 7 F's of success: faith, family, friends, finance, fitness, freedom, and fun. Faith, family, friends, finance, fitness, freedom, and fun. It's just a way to categorize it. So for me, my own personal definition, after doing this for close to 40 years, I like to talk in terms of 200% success in business and life. And that consists of 100% outer achievement, along with 100% inner fulfillment. And it's the inner fulfillment part that's missing for a lot of people today. You know, despite all the challenges that we've had in the past and what we're going to see in the next few months, we still live in the greatest country in the world, in its most prosperous time in history. So, you know, we throw away more food and stuff than a lot of other countries will ever see. And we're in a better position that if we do this right, we can get through this relatively quickly. There are some other countries out there that are not as developed, and they're going to have a real challenge. They cannot fight this thing. So we have more abundance and more opportunity success. But right now I go to the grocery store and I see a lot of people who are either seriously depressed or panicked. And I want to say that if your power, peace, love, joy, creativity, intelligence, freedom are not constantly growing, I think that you do end up not living your full potential. So the question is, what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person do you choose to be in the midst of today's challenges? Because one thing I've observed in doing all this personal development, writing and reading and teaching, is that your income can grow only to the extent that you do. So think seriously about your beliefs and your values and who you want to be during this next recession that's really, I would say, for all practical purposes, upon us. Okay, so there's a major principle that I want to share with you along these lines, and that is that you are 100% personally responsible for your life. Not necessarily for what happens to you, but how you feel about it and what you do with it. And I get a lot of pushback on this when I speak in groups. Oh, Max, I'll give you 50%, 60, 70, but not 100%. You don't understand. You're not in my industry. You don't have my boss. You don't have my employees, my state regulators. You don't live where I live. You're not married to my spouse, right? To the degree that you deny responsibility at all, I believe that you'll be a victim. And some people even go so far as to sabotage their own success. I've been doing this a long time. So I discovered that there are two beliefs that successful people hold. And that is, number one, you got to believe it's possible. Do you really think right now, in your heart of hearts, is it really possible to double your income or maybe have your best year ever, even during a recession? So obviously there's more to it, and that's what the rest of our speakers are going to talk about, not only today, but throughout the rest of the week. They're going to give you the tools. But I think you make it a lot easier if you allow for the possibility, because it's easy to prove. Somebody on this webinar is going to do it. Somebody in the last recession did it. Look up on the internet. It's being done. Okay, but we all have a thermostat. We all get comfortable, right? We're set at a certain level. If business goes down, we do everything we can. We work day and night to make it come back up to the level that we're comfortable at. But then if we have a really good year, people slack off, they get sick, they do this, they get injured. And I believe it's all a way to bring that thermostat back down to their comfort zone. There's a lot going on there. What we really want to do is raise the thermostat. So do you believe you deserve to make a lot of money, to have a record year despite the recession? Okay? The key is we all allow ourselves to earn what we've done at this particular point in time. We earn what we do because that's how much we've allowed ourselves to earn. Okay, and I know that Rob Monroe and Dr. Annie Ward are going to talk more about turning these fears into certainty and getting control over it. So I'm going to leave that to them. What I'd like to do now is pivot and give you 6 very practical steps to designing your destiny. The first one is stay centered. Stay centered. What's the first thing many people do when they wake up, even before they get out of bed? Check their email, right? I bet you were thinking it. Give yourself $100 if you were thinking check your email. My question is, how many people are in that bed with you, right? Or they bookend their days with massive to-do lists that'll never get done and just create stress. Successful people don't do this. First, they center themselves. Some call it their hour of power. They may spend 20 minutes in prayer or meditation, 20 minutes reading uplifting and inspirational or personal development literature, 20 minutes exercising. What's your hour of power look like? What's your morning routine look like? For over 40 years, my wife and I have actually been teaching meditation to people nationwide. That's what I do for fun on the weekends. So what's your hour of power look like? What's your success routine look like? Number 1, stay centered. Again, Rob Monroe and Dr. Annie Ward are going to talk about these things, but I believe if you're not centered and stay calm, you don't stand a chance. So number 2, let me ask you this before I tell you what it is. What do you think is the biggest difference between somebody earning, let's say, $100,000 a year and somebody earning $500,000? Or somebody earning $1 million, somebody who's earning $10 million? Are those people really that much smarter than you? Are they that much better at what they do, or technically competent, or better at time management? Do they have some secret knowledge that you don't know about? Well, we all have our different strengths, right? But you know what the real difference is? They think bigger. Number 2 is think big. People who think big tend to achieve big things in business and life. Again, in over 30 years of doing this, I found that lack of vision is the major reason why many people fail to reach their full potential. Somebody once reportedly asked Helen Keller, is there anything worse than being blind? And she said, yes, a person with sight and no vision. And I'll tell you, let me tell you about Mr. R.J. Kelly. When I first met him 6 years ago, he handed me his business card at a conference. It said Chief Visionary Officer on it. And I'm like, what the heck is that? First time I've ever seen that. What I've come to learn in the last 6 years is R.J. Kelly is a man of vision. So in case I forget, R.J., I want to thank you for putting on this tremendous event this week. It really took a real visionary just to think of it, never mind to implement it. So thank you. So we all have our different strengths. Most of you listening to this webinar, watching this webinar, have absolutely no idea how powerful you really are. And it all starts with the kind of questions you ask. If you ask, and you do it this way, oh, how am I ever going to make payroll or make my personal bills in this recession? Then your brain goes to work on that question, kind of in a survival mode. But what if you genuinely asked, how can we double our revenue despite the recession? And then that's what the brain goes to work on. What kind of question do you want your brain to come up with answers to? If you want to get big answers, you got to ask big questions, right? So number 2 is to think big. Don't let the stresses and strains of this recession and the marketplace make you think small. That's not what's going to get us through. Number 3 is be specific. Everybody wants to work less, make more, lose weight, be spiritually fulfilled, right? The problem with those is they're not specific. So being specific forces our attention. It focuses us on everything we do want in all our activities. And you've got to be able to quantify it, to measure it, right? That gives you the accountability. Successful people hold themselves and the others around them accountable. That's what I mean by 100% personally responsible. Number 4 is to take action. Take action and the universe will respond. I guarantee it. It doesn't always respond the way your ego likes, but it responds. If you want to be more successful, you can start anytime. In my book, the only true failure is the failure to start, the failure to try, right? It's a scientific fact, Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And you can state this in many other paradigms, right? In computerese, it's gigo, garbage in, garbage out. In Eastern philosophy, it's karma. Karma just means action. in Western religion, as you sow, so shall you reap. And I'm calling in today from beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. There's a saying down south here, it says, what goes around comes around. And they usually follow that up with honey. Okay, so take action. Number 5 is you got to commit. So many people dabble half-heartedly in their business and their relationships in life. And this is a major problem. Remember when you were a kid learning to ride a bike? You didn't know how to do it, but you had faith. You saw other kids doing it. You said, hey, I want to be like them. And then that fateful day came. It took the training wheels off, guided you down the road and let go. And what happened? Boom, you fell down. Did you get up and say, that's it, no more for me, put the training wheels back on? No way. You got back up and did it again until you mastered it. There's no turning back. Failure was not an option. There's an old saying, if you want to take the island, you've got to burn the boats. There's no going back. You've got to commit. Okay, so you're doing all this. You've centered yourself, you're thinking big, you're asking good questions, you're being specific, you're taking action, you're committed. The last step is rinse and repeat. It's all a test, and make sure and make no mistake about it, we're all being tested, whether we want to be or not. You cannot opt out of this test. And nobody gets it right first time out. Nobody's perfect. So just take the action, let go of your attachment to the results. Don't be so afraid, and don't judge. Don't judge, don't let the fear stop you. There's no such thing as failure. It's only feedback. Okay? So in summary, here are the 6 steps. Get centered, think big, be specific, take action, commit, and rinse and repeat. As R.J. Kelly likes to quote Dr. Joe Vitale, a good goal should excite you a lot and scare you just a little. And to that, I would add, fear is just excitement without the oxygen. So we're all moving into what will probably be one of the most challenging times that we have seen since the last recession. And overall, I'm pretty sure the numbers are going to be terrible. They may be the worst we've ever seen. But you know what? I'm not concerned with overall numbers. I'm concerned with your numbers. So I said at the beginning, it's going to require some introspection, some creativity and courage. And it's not necessarily easy. But you know what? It's a lot easier than sitting around doing nothing and getting stressed out or depressed while feeling like a helpless victim. I believe it's possible. I believe you deserve it. The only question is, will you do it? Now is the time you're being called into action. So for everybody viewing this webinar, whether you're a business owner or not, if you'd like help with anything we covered here today, give me a call. Growing your business, recession-proofing your mind, legacy planning, master planning, or even if you want to learn how to meditate. Call me for a quick 15-minute get acquainted call so I can find out a little bit more about your situation, how I can help you get through this very sensitive time and take it to the max. You see my number there? If you email me, put R.J. Kelly's name in the subject line so it doesn't get lost in the email. For the rest of you, I hope you found some practical value. I know we've got some excellent speakers lined up, not only for today, but the rest of the week, starting with Rob Monroe. So I'm going to sign off, and I wish you all great success. And thank you very much, RJ. I appreciate the opportunity to share all this with you.
Great having you with us as always, Max. Thank you so much. So I'm going to pivot over to my good friend, Rob Monroe. But again, the point of Max's talks is that what is it that you need? What another speaker calls stinking thinking? I know for me, I find myself thinking, well, how can this possibly be our best year ever in 2020? But the reality is, it just means that I'm putting myself in a box. There are opportunities there are people that are actually doing well right now. Yes, there are many that are not, that are struggling. But there are some that are doing well because they're finding innovative, they're opening their minds up to look for opportunities. And one of the things is, as the saying goes, there are no atheists in a foxhole. I think that's very true when the bullets start flying. All of a sudden, maybe some of those prejudices go out the window. Well, that's never more true than when I have my conversations with dear friend, and I've got to tell you, fraternity brother as well, Rob Monroe, retired captain of the SEAL team. Unless you've had your head under a bushel and been asleep for the last 10 or 12 years, I think probably most Americans have heard about the SEAL teams. Yes, we have other groups in our military, the Army Rangers and others that are the Green Berets and so forth. But I got to say, you know, I want, if I'm in a street fight, hopefully I'm never in a street fight, but if I'm ever in a street fight, I want a SEAL next to me, and better yet, all around me. And if I only have to pick one, I would pick Rob Monroe. Rob is not only huge in terms of, he's a big guy, strong as an ox, but his heart is just as big. And so as we were talking about what we could address for business people today, and how do we address this overwhelming, this unseen enemy, as our president calls it, I thought, you know, the training that our SEALs have been through would be an extraordinary thing to share with one another. So Rob, I'm going to ask you to get started with us here and let me know. This is, for those listening in your listening land, this is not what we do for our profession. None of us are professionals at this, so please be gracious. But Rob, are you ready to go?
I'm ready, RJ. Let's do
All
it.
right, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, RJ. Great intro, and good morning to everybody. And I'm truly honored to be here. And these really are stressful times that we're in, and I'm feeling the stress. You know, the confinement. It's very uncomfortable to be in this place where we are. Although I spent nearly 3 decades as a SEAL officer, I view myself as pretty much the common man. But maybe like our SEAL ethos states, I'm that common man with an uncommon desire to succeed. The events of the virus are disconcerting, even a little scary for all of us. Today I'll be covering 3 main thoughts that I use to manage uncertainty: how to initially survive a traumatic event, what to do to better the situation, and being positive throughout the event to learn from it such that I can avoid the next one, or at least lessen its severity. So now, not to make light of the seriousness of this current crisis, it's a tradition though, whenever a SEAL is giving, or a special operator is giving a presentation, to start with some humor. Navy SEALs are in demand now, selling books, writing screenplays, giving motivational speeches, and selling all sorts of products like, well, Navy SEAL gardening gloves or Navy SEAL charcoal briquettes. Actually, those are my ideas, but I'm thinking there may be a market there. In fact, I thought about doing a YouTube video like on topics like how Navy SEALs wash their car, or how Navy SEALs shop at Costco, or an instructional course on how Navy SEALs change a baby's dirty diaper. I do have to clean that one up a little more, however. So although I can say I'm not an expert on changing dirty diapers, I do have some thoughts about surviving in a stressful situations. The most stressful situation I've been in is a combat zone. No rules, no laws there, a lot of danger, people getting injured, people dying, chaos, which all can lead to a lot of uncertainty, fear, and distress. To have humans, military members, survive in combat, they have to be properly trained. But trying to train soldiers, Marines, SEALs, or other operators, as we say, in a combat situation does not have a great outcome. Humans have to be trained before entering combat in a relatively safe environment and in a way that will test these combat trainees without endangering them too much. So how do SEAL instructors successfully train students to deal with the chaos and stress of operating in a combat environment? Well, while learning the basics of SEAL operations, trainees have enormous pressure placed on them, depriving them of comfort, injecting significant sleep deprivation, physically taxing trainees with daily 4-mile runs, 2-mile swims, thousands of calisthenics, and seemingly endless obstacle courses. This, over a 6-month period, coupled with dive training, land warfare training, weapons familiarization, mission planning, et cetera, puts enormous physical and mental strain on the trainees, some of whom at the end complete SEAL training, but usually about 75% of the class does not. So with that background, let's talk about how these trainees deal with stress. Scuba diving, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, scuba, offers a great example for introducing stress. One of the SEAL dive training activities is called pool competency, and is designed to test the SEAL's ability to stay calm and think their way through the stress of managing a diving emergency. In pool competency, in the scenario, the SEAL trainee is on scuba at the bottom of the pool, wearing a scuba tank, fins, mask, and swim trunks. He's swimming back and forth a few feet off the bottom of the pool. It cannot see the SEAL instructor, who is wearing fins, mask, swimsuit, and snorkel, swimming above him at the surface like a hungry shark on the hunt. The trainee knows the instructor is up there somewhere and what is about to happen, but he doesn't know when it's going to happen. At the instructor's whim, he dives down on the student, swooping in like a hawk on a baby duckling, and in one motion flips the trainee upside down while simultaneously ripping off his face mask, regulator from his mouth, pulling his fins off, then tying a knot in the SEAL trainee's air hose. At that point, the SEAL instructor then returns to the surface to watch the trainee's reaction. So this leads us to our first point in getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Number one, don't panic. Maintain calm by concentrating on what must be initially done to survive, solving problems to alleviate the immediate emergent situation or stress being caused by the initial impetus of the situation. Calm is contagious. The SEAL trainee, now holding his breath, knows his first move in this chaotic, stress-filled situation is to get air. And that means untangling his air hose and getting that regulator in his mouth so he can start breathing. He may have to unstrap his scuba tanks from his back. No matter, his number one job is to get oxygen into his lungs. Now that he's accomplished that and he's breathing, what's his next move? Well, this leads us to point number two. Do what can be done. Control what can be controlled. Look for the easy things, the logical actions that can be accomplished. First things first, the low-hanging fruit, and do them. Now that he's back breathing on his scuba tank, the SEAL trainee can take his time to determine his next move, which usually is getting his face mask on and clearing it of water. At this point, it's time to find his fins, put them on, strap his tanks back on his back, and now this SEAL trainee has successfully passed pool competency. Used to call it pool harassment when I went through training, but that was centuries ago. Which brings us to point number three. Think immediacy. Don't try to think too far into the future initially. Just focus on getting to the next minute, hour, day, action. Whatever increment or activity makes sense to move forward, even if it seems to be a minor improvement. Surviving SEAL Training's Hell Week is about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Hell Week simulates the stress of combat, a week of nearly continuous movement, running, swimming, paddling, inflatable boats, working as a team. The trainees are on average receive about 4 hours sleep total for the week. It's miserable, and at many stages I found myself just trying to get through the next hour or to the next morning or survive until the next meal. Hell Week really drove home the point of being thankful for hot food, dry clothes without sand in it, and a restful sleep in a warm bed. Let's talk about point number 4. Make a plan, get organized. So once you've survived the first 3, now you have some time to think. When time permits, make a short-term plan, or maybe a midterm plan, or maybe a long-term plan. Creating these plans will help you to focus on surviving the crisis, resolving the problem, and or making the situation more tolerable. In SEAL operation, whether it's a training operation or a real world operation, it involves planning. No matter the activity, SEALs plan the plan, they brief the plan, they execute the plan, and then debrief how well the operation they conducted followed the plan. Point number 5. Put the plan in motion. Remember, no plan survives first contact with the enemy, meaning that the plan will change as events and time evolve. For years, the US military has done planning to deal with conflicts in many areas of the world. For those areas and contingencies in which they don't have plans, what our military does is use another existing plan, and they modify that plan such that it fits a current contingency or that area of the world in which they need to conduct operations. Good example of this is the movie We Were Soldiers Once and Young. Colonel Hal Moore, who is the protagonist of the movie, played by Mel Gibson, they've flown into basically a hornet's nest of a battle. They didn't plan for this to happen, and there's all this chaos going on. And as this happens, Colonel Moore has to stop himself in the midst of this battle, and he has to ask himself three questions. What's happening? What's not happening? What's not happening that should be happening? This is the part of no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Point number 6, be positive. Humor, even in times of distress, always helps. Here's a SEAL story for you. Well, it may not be a real story, but it's a SEAL story. Most SEALs don't like to get wet. That may seem funny, but usually getting wet, whether diving or swimming, means at some point getting cold. And there's nothing worse than being wet and cold, other than being wet, cold, and sandy, and then staying that way all day. Conversely, there's nothing more fun for SEALs than conducting a military freefall or a skydive, and then safely landing on the solid earth. So in this story, a platoon of SEALs gleefully went out to the Naval Air Station here, got their parachutes on, received jump master safety checks, loaded a C-130 aircraft ready to jump, and took off over the ocean, headed to our drop zone located in southeast San Diego. At about 4,000 feet, and still over the ocean, the plane started to violently shake and began making a slow turn back towards land and the airfield. An air crewman came to the cargo bay where the SEALs were sitting, waiting to get to the drop zone, and said, "We're having an in-flight emergency. This plane needs to land immediately, and the pilot has ordered, for your safety, all you parachutists to exit the aircraft immediately, because our landing may not be fingers waving in the air uniform." So as the SEALs waited for the back ramp to be lowered so they could exit the aircraft, one SEAL turns to another and says, "Oh, crap." Well, he didn't say that exactly, but it was something like that. And then he says, "Isn't this a load of garbage? We're not going to the drop zone, and now we're going to get wet." Humor injected into stressful situation can relieve tension and be a moral lift for everyone involved. Point number 7, lessons learned. The after action, or hot wash as SEALs call it. Learn what can be learned from this stressful time, as these lessons may be valuable to somewhat mitigate the crisis or avoid a similar crisis in the future. Maybe there are others that can be helped by your knowledge, using the lessons from your experience to prepare for the next future stressful event. Point number 8, be thankful. Lastly, appreciate the positive things that have occurred in life. Concentrate on them. Be thankful for family, friends, teammates, our country, the leaders that are trying to solve the problems created by this crisis. In general, count all the blessings we enjoy as Americans. So what I'd like you to take away from this presentation on managing uncertainty is, number 1, don't panic. Solve the immediate problem, which will allow you or your business to survive. Number 2, do what can be done. Control the things that you can control. Number 3, think, focus, think immediacy. Focus on getting to the next minute, hour, day, week, whatever that is. Number 4 and 5, make a plan. Get organized, put the plan in motion. Number 6, be positive. Number 7, what lessons can be learned from this experience that will assist you in the future? And number 8, be thankful for what we have and for our great country. Having nearly a 3 decades career as a SEAL officer, I'm always thankful for hot food, dry clothes without sand, and a warm bed. I'm also thankful that I was able to serve my country as a leader in the SEAL community, and I'm thankful that RJ has given me an opportunity to present what I've learned from my experience to all of you. In closing, I'm honored to be here. I hope in this time of uncertainty, you found something I've said to be useful as we all try to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Thank you all. And RJ, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thanks so much, Rob. Well, and I'm just chuckling over so many things that you were sharing, and because it also reminded me of some other stories, at least the ones you've been able to share with us, because there's some things you can't, but some of the stories you shared. And you've got a great sense of humor, but you are a great leader and a great friend. We're grateful for you and Cynthia in our lives.
Thanks, RJ. Appreciate it.
So we're on the home stretch. We're hoping that you are getting you're taking lots of notes from today. Again, just as a reminder, we are recording this session. We will be also attempting to get to the queue questions that you might be sending us. So if you do have questions, you can certainly reach out directly to Max or Rob or Dr. Andy Ward, but you can also put them in your chat box and we'll see if we can't get those answered yet, even for our session today. But this is being recorded. Our goal is to get this out, posted on YouTube tonight, again, as I mentioned, so you can share it with others. We also want to, again, remind you that we really would love your donation to the food bank of any amount. I've seen, and we've had donations from as little as $10, and someone who will remain anonymous who made a donation of $1,000 to the food bank. That provides 3,000 meals. So anyway, whatever the amount, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you make a donation. And we will be sending that link out again tonight, along with the link to the video. Well, last week I don't know about most of you, but I've been at home. I've been dutifully following our governor's request to stay at home. And so I've been getting a lot more webinars to listen to than ever before, at least in a concentrated period of time. And I had the privilege last week of getting to listen in to a webinar sponsored by The Signatory. And The Signatory is, there are a number of wonderful nonprofits out there that will provide an umbrella, and we can use their tax status. So what it allows us to do is to bunch, I'm not going to make this into a tax talk, but for those of you who are having trouble finding deductions, one of the ways you can accelerate some deductions for yourself, even if you don't itemize, is to put and create what we call a family giving fund. And for example, if you've got some assets that you want to get a deduction for this year, even though you may be giving that money away over a 4 or 5 year period of time, you can write the check now, put that money into a family giving fund, and then get the deduction all 100% this year, even though that giving, what you use that money for, may be over a 3 or 4 or 5 year period of time. And so one of the best groups for doing that is a group called The Signatory. That's where my wife and I have our family giving fund. As I say, there are a number of other wonderful organizations out there, but we really like The Signatory. And they had an event last week that I attended, a webinar. And one of the speakers was Dr. Andy Ward. And Dr. Ward is out of Atlanta. He has the Ward Psychological Group, and Andy has just such a disarming charm about him. I'm not sure if that's just because he's back in the South or just because that's also who he is. But his comments were so impactful on me personally, and I've been sharing them with a number of people. His comments were so personally impactful, I asked him if he would be kind enough to join us as well. And Bless has already said, RJ, I've already been asked by six other people to make a presentation. So Andy, thank you so much for working us in to your presentation. And we're excited to have you with us. So hopefully you're ready to go.
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everybody. It is a real treat and privilege to share some insights that I've been having. And by way of introduction, I'm a licensed psychologist. I've been in practice for 21 years. I also run 2 separate businesses. And so I'm going to be approaching this not only from a clinician, but also as a business owner and leader. Like so many of you, I have to think about managing cash flow in these times, providing for the salaries of my employees, et cetera. And so This is very near and dear to my heart, what I'm going to be speaking about, which is essentially how can, in the midst of fear, and that's what so many of us are feeling right now, how can we adopt resiliency predominantly through the vehicle of a healthy mindset? And so some observations also. I can't recall in my 21 years of practice feeling so much fear, not only from my close family and friends, but even in my professional network. There's just a lot of people who are just running scared right now. And there's lots of good reasons for it. Certainly the fears can range from, am I going to get this darn virus? But also, what is this going to do to me economically, financially, as well as those whom I love? And this fear is quite rampant. In many ways, that's the real contagion that's been spreading. And I think as a good starting point, we need to understand what is fear. There's various definitions out there. I like this one, which says, fear is a powerful and unpleasant reaction caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous or threatening. And I don't have time to unpack all the nuance to this, but the operant word in that is this word belief, meaning that we play a moderating variable as to whether something will be a nuisance, will be challenging, or downright terrifying. Two people can experience the exact same thing, and person A was like, yeah, that was tough, but person B can be absolutely paralyzed by the experience. And so what we believe about something, most importantly, how we frame it about the future, will determine whether we experience this thing called fear. Moving on, fear isn't all bad, though. I want to make sure that's very clear. It's actually a necessary function of living. It's quite normal, meaning our brains are actually designed to feel fear as a means to potentially have us avoid things that might harm us. Fear is also very much related to the stress response, meaning that when you start to feel scared about any kind of your circumstances, the stress response, the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism biologically is kicking in, and it creates this cascading effect that has tentacles reaching throughout various aspects of our life. One of the most obvious ways is the emotion of fear, right? We think of fear purely as an emotion, but actually it's more than just an emotion. It's actually even a cognitive process where our minds will be fixed in a certain type of way that reflects fear. It's also quite physical, meaning if you're chronically or acutely scared, you're going to not be eating well. You may not be sleeping well. You may have headaches, etc. The body communicates to us when we're scared. And I think what this all ultimately means is that, again, fear isn't necessarily bad. It can be protective. When I'm scared, when I'm feeling fearful, I think that should be a time to pause and actually ask ourselves, what exactly am I scared of? Because sometimes when we just stop and reflect and actually name what it is we're scared of the most, sometimes it can lead us then into action. And also it can maybe lead us to the fact of, man, I'm scared of maybe something that is probably a little unrealistic, but we've got to start that process of naming fear. Here's what I've observed, though. And again, I don't know if this is a comprehensive list by any means, but just some basic observations as to why I think this current stage of fear that we are is unique dealing with the COVID-19 virus. Number one, everyone's facing it, right? This isn't just a little pocket in our country here or there. We are all in this together. And so we're all kind of hurting together. At the same time, we're all needing each other for support and comfort during this time. And as we know, the media itself can be very sensational. The news coverage that is 24/7, that's unabating, that's always there, reinforces this notion of fear and that this is something we have to be scared of. I don't know about you, but I've actually had to stop as a personal boundary watching news media. I've decided to go strictly to reading all of my news. Number one, I get to decide when I start and stop it. I get to gloss over or even skip through things that are a little more sensational, because I realized when I was just watching the news over and over, it wasn't blessing me. I was almost always walking away feeling a little uptight, agitated, but most importantly, scared. Also, this new virus has global implications. I mean, what's happening in China is affecting us. What's happening in Italy is affecting us, and what's happening here is affecting other places. So again, it taps into this notion that we're all in this together. And here's another big one. The disruption of our lives reinforces its seriousness. You know, I've spoken with some elderly people in their 80s and even 90s, and I've had people say, I've never, ever in my life experienced anything like this, where we are sequestering ourselves and not interacting with other people. The mere fact that all of us are doing this, and in fact, even doing this today, reinforces how serious our current times are. We generally live in a safe world, in our modern world in particular. But you know, if you really think about it, just a few generations ago, illness, uncertainty, all of that was a little bit more common to the everyday person. But we tend to think that in our modern world, with our technology and our modern medicine, that we're insulated from such things. And I think we're learning that in many ways that's false. And then also, it's just not over yet. We have not begun to level off on the level of transmission of this disease. And so the impact, what that means for us financially as business leaders and as family members, we still don't quite know what's going to happen. And one thing I'm an absolute believer in is if we have an uncertain future facing us, we tend to be more scared about it rather than settled about it. What I've also noticed just over the last 4 weeks, there's been this interesting evolution of feelings, right? I think when we first heard about this term COVID-19 abroad, here in the United States, there's some interesting reactions. There's a lot of ambivalence. People weren't sure how to quite deal with it. In some cases, just downright denial that, oh, this isn't a big deal at all. But once it did hit, wow, did we see a massive change in the emotional and behavioral results in people. I mean, people got hysterical. As you know, people went to the grocery store and they started clearing out aisles. I know I could not find toilet paper for about 3 weeks, right? And some people were just still downright resistant to the idea that this was a big idea. But over the last few weeks in particular, we're seeing that's now shifted into now a general sense of fear. But in some cases, people are adopting a sense of mental resilience. They realize they're in this for the long haul and that they can also navigate this with success. They just need to have the right pieces in place. So, as you can imagine, related to the economic impact specifically, here's what I've heard from a lot of my colleagues, as well as even in my clinical practice. People are scared, they're worried, they're uncertain. There's that general sense of unsettledness. And this one's interesting. In some cases, I've heard people just downright angry. They're angry that they can't provide for their employees or for their families in the way that they want. Certainly anxiety, and in some cases panic. Grief. Now, this is an interesting note. I've heard a fellow colleague say that kind of what we're all experiencing collectively is mild grief. We're grieving the loss of our life in the way that we knew it. That's what leads us to be a little more irritable right now, or a little despondent, a little more sad. And in some cases, even depressed. Obviously, we can feel a little more impulsive sometimes as a means to just want to control this fear. And here's one of the more powerful ones a person can experience: powerlessness. We know that that's one of the biggest starters of the stress response in a person, is a sense of perceived powerlessness. And so I think we in the service industry, trying to consult and help with people, we need to let them understand that we still have choice. May not be the choices that we want or ideally would like to have, but we always have a choice, whether it's our attitude or how we're going to handle something. We always have a choice. We're never, ever powerless. Behaviorally, here are some of the impacts that I'm hearing. It's just showing up in our bodies. I like the phrase that our body keeps score with all the stress. And so as you can see, there's sleep problems, muscle problems, fatigue. If you've got autoimmune issues, they tend to flare up. Grinding of teeth. If you already have heart problems, guess what? That tends to increase. And obviously a sense of moodiness. So with all of this in mind, what are just some things I'd like to share with you to practically start making some steps towards greater resilience and fighting this fear? Number one, I think it's really helpful to frame it in this way. Move from fear to concern. Fear is normal, as I said previously, but fear, if left unabated, if not addressed, tends to grow and get worse and worse and worse. It can even be paralyzing in some cases. And so I think this is the language I like to use with people. Be concerned. It's okay to have a semblance of worry and to be concerned, because now you can do something with concern. It's more motivating, where fear can be paralyzing. I like how Kevin O'Leary says this: whatever you pay attention to grows. Meaning if you're going to pay attention to just all of this worst case scenario thinking and all the fear, that's what's going to grow. If you pay attention to the concerns and then the choices you can make, that will grow as well. Number two, as I alluded to a moment ago, I think it's very important for ourselves and to encourage others to move away from worst case scenario thinking. We know biologically people are predetermined to want to go to worst case scenario thinking. But I love this quote by Mark Twain. It's one of my favorite all-time quotes. And he said this near the end of his life. He said, "I am an old man and have known a great many trials and tribulations, of which most never came true." Now, this is a man who was preceded in death by his wife and some children, and he even experienced financial ruin. But I think what he's saying to us is, don't fret about all this worst case scenario thinking. Most of the time, it doesn't end up as bad as we fear the most. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. That's a real encouragement to us to reframe our thinking. I think next, it's important just to remind people of history. There's a saying in my field that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And what past behavior teaches us 100% of the time is that pandemics end. Markets come back. Jobs do come back as well. We will get through it because history shows us that it will. And then I think it's important to help people accept their challenges rather than resist them. There's an old saying that says, whatever you resist, persists. And man, I'm a huge proponent of that statement. If we're just going to be in denial about even the challenges we face, we're going to have a harder time psychologically developing resilience. We need to face that this is serious. We need to do something about it. We have the power of choice and we can attack it. But when we resist it and adopt a passive form of coping, that's when it hurts us the most, right? And again, as Henry Ford says here, think you can or think you can't. Either way, you'll be right. And then lastly, perhaps this goes without saying, but I think what we all need right now is a little bit of empathy from each other. And I think we need to be givers of empathy. Again, it goes to the saying, people don't care what you think until they think that you care. There's a lot of people who are hurting right now. I know some of my employees are. They're scared. And yes, they want to know, do I have a good strategy in place? But you know what they also want to hear from me? That I care. That their story and their struggles matter. And boy, that's a great reminder for all of us in this time. It helps really grow a sense of resiliency. So friends, I want to thank you for your attention here. I'm going to turn it back to my friend RJ.
Well, thanks, Andy. That was, I think for all the listeners out there, you understand why I was so impressed with what Dr. Andy had to share. And again, I know you're going to want to get a copy of the slides and also to reach out to him for being able to ask him perhaps some specific questions and personal questions. All of our speakers are on LinkedIn, so Max Bolka and Rob Monroe and Dr. Andy Ward, as well as myself, RJ Kelly. It is right up 10 o'clock, and we've got a few. Okay, great, thank you. There's some very kind remarks that are coming in. Thank you so very much. In order to be honest to our time commitments, I think we're going to have to skip our Q&A time and just invite you to send those questions in to us, though. You send them to me, RJ at wealthlegacygroup.com. They're on the screen. And we'll make sure that your question gets answered. We'll send that off to either Rob or Max or Andy, or if it's a question you have for me, we'll make sure that question gets answered. So please send that to us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I want to remind you that this is the first of 5 days. Tomorrow, we've got our tech titans are going to be sharing with us some tools that we can use for staying in touch with our clients, as well as how can we find new business that we may not have considered before. How do we stay in touch with our teams? How do we stay in touch with our families? So you're going to want to make sure that you are on board for that. And congratulations on getting to this tech. And then on Wednesday, we've got our elected officials. And, again, we might ask ourselves, well, what can they really do for us? And as it turns out, they can do a whole lot. And that's why you're going to want to listen in. Thursday, perhaps going to be the most important one of all of our sessions. And that is just show me the money. How do business owners get enough cash to stay in business, to pay their staff? There are some things you've been reading about, the SBA loans, but there are some micro loan programs that you're probably not familiar with. And I want you to be able to listen and hear about that. As well as for a business owner who just simply doesn't get enough cash and time, how can you not go out of business? And there are some new rules that just got signed that will enable you to go into a reorganization mode and come out the other side. And then last on Friday, we've got the Chief Medical Officer for San Diego County, as well as some other experts that are going to be sharing about when will this all be over and what's it going to look like? What does our new tomorrow look like? So just in closing, thanks so much for our wonderful financial hosts, Home Street Bank, who you're going to hear more about on Thursday. Our friends at Pacific Life, who I own Pacific Life and my own life insurance. They have remarkable products, both for living as well as death. And also our friends at Vistage. In the last recession, Vistage CEO members grew an average 5.5 times faster than other companies. And that's staggering when you consider that Vistage has 25,000 members worldwide. So my good friend Dale Robinette is right here in San Diego. He's not only a master chair, but he's also the best practices chair of all the chairs here in Southern California. And just tremendous resource. So I'm going to have you reach out to Dale. If you're a business owner and you don't have a peer group that you're talking with, you owe it to yourself to be in a peer group you can share with one another and have a master chair like Dale. So just in closing, stay safe, be smart about your choices, be kind to others. We're all leaving a legacy. Wealth Legacy Group is about, yes, we help clients manage their assets and make decisions about their business and other things. But it's all about legacy as well, because it doesn't matter how big your pile is. When you go, it goes. It's left behind. It doesn't go with you. So we're all leaving a legacy, every one of us. And every day we get a choice about how we frame that legacy. Did you make a bad choice yesterday? Did you make a horrible choice last year? Guess what? Today you can start changing that legacy. So let's each one of us focus on leaving a legacy of optimism and caring. We are in this together. We will get through it as a country stronger than ever. And if this has been helpful to you, this seminar today or webinar today, please share it with someone else in the series. And let's make a positive difference in their lives as well. Again, please make a donation to the San Diego Food Bank. We'll be sending a link in our email that you'll be getting from us later today, and then we'll be sending you a survey at the end of the week. Please help me make your donation today. So many here in San Diego and other areas. I know we've got people in from Japan that have logged in. Dear friend Wayne, an entrepreneur there, and others from around the country, Karen in Tennessee. So for all of us at Wealth Legacy Group, thanks to our wonderful team who helped put this on, both in front and behind, this is RJ Kelly. And I'm just grateful for you all. Stay safe, make a difference in the lives of other people, and I'm signing off until our next time together. Bye for now.